My mother-in-law switched my insulin with water. I went into diabetic coma at dinner. Kendra, wake up! Someone call 911! What happened? What's wrong with her? I don't know, she just collapsed. She's not breathing right. Check her blood sugar, she's diabetic. Where's her kit? My mother-in-law switched my insulin with water. I went into a diabetic coma at dinner. Hi, I'm Kendra. Today I'm going to tell you my story. But before I continue, please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories like this. I need to start by explaining that I'm a type 1 diabetic. I was diagnosed when I was 11 years old, and managing my condition has been part of my daily life for 16 years now. I am meticulous about it. I check my blood sugar regularly, count my carbs carefully, and never miss an insulin dose. My life literally depends on it. When I met my husband Patrick 3 years ago, I was upfront about my diabetes from our first date. Some guys get weird about it, but Patrick was amazing. He asked questions, learned how to recognize the signs of high and low blood sugar, and even learned how to use my emergency glucagon kit. I want to keep you safe, he told me. That's when I knew he was the one. We got married 2 years ago and everything was perfect, except for one thing: his mother, Carol. Carol had been a nurse before she retired, which should have been reassuring. Someone with medical knowledge who understood my condition, right? Wrong. Carol had very strong opinions about health and medicine, specifically that most conditions could be cured through diet and natural remedies. From the moment Patrick told her about my diabetes, she started with the comments. You know, I've read that cinnamon can reverse diabetes, she said at our first dinner together. You should try cutting out all sugar and carbs completely. Your body will heal itself. Mom, Kendra has type 1 diabetes, Patrick explained. That's different from type 2. Her pancreas doesn't produce insulin at all. Diet alone won't fix it. Well, Western medicine wants you to believe that, Carol said, giving me this pitying look. But the pharmaceutical companies make billions off insulin. Of course they don't want you to know about natural cures. I tried to stay polite. I appreciate your concern, but I've been managing this for 16 years with my endocrinologist's guidance. My treatment plan works for me. She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. If you say so, dear. The comments continued every time we saw her. She'd send Patrick articles about diabetes cures, most of them from sketchy wellness blogs. She'd suggest supplements, special diets, essential oils. Patrick would throw them away and apologize, but Carol never stopped. My best friend Simone, who's been with me since high school, warned me early on. That woman doesn't respect boundaries, she said. Watch out for her. She's just concerned in her own weird way, I said. I can handle it. I had no idea how wrong I was. Things escalated about 6 months ago when Patrick and I announced we were trying to have a baby. My endocrinologist, Dr. Williams, had cleared me for pregnancy with careful monitoring. My blood sugar control was excellent, and she was confident I could have a healthy pregnancy. Carol's reaction was immediate and harsh. You can't have a baby with that condition, she said. It's too dangerous. You'll pass it on to the child. Type 1 diabetes isn't directly inherited like that, I explained, and plenty of diabetic women have healthy pregnancies. I was a nurse for 30 years, Kendra. I know what I'm talking about. You're being selfish and reckless. Patrick stepped in. Mom, that's enough. This is our decision, not yours. Kendra's doctor supports this. Fine, Carol said coldly. But don't come crying to me when something goes wrong. After that conversation, Carol became cold toward me. She'd barely speak to me at family gatherings, would give me these judgmental looks, and started making passive-aggressive comments about my insulin. Still dependent on those shots, I see, she'd say. Must be exhausting being tied to medication. Patrick noticed and confronted her multiple times, but she'd always deny being hostile. I'm just concerned about her health, she'd say innocently. Is that a crime? Patrick's younger brother Tyler pulled me aside at a barbecue one day. My mom's acting weird about you, he said. Weirder than usual. She keeps talking about how you shouldn't have kids, how your insulin is poison. It's creepy. I know, I said. But what can I do? She's Patrick's mom. Just be careful around her. When mom gets an idea in her head, she doesn't let it go. I should have listened to him more seriously. About 3 months ago, Carol started inviting us over for dinner every Sunday. It was unusual because she'd been so distant, but Patrick thought maybe she was trying to make amends. She says she wants to be closer to us before we have kids, he explained. I was skeptical, but agreed to go. The first few dinners were actually pleasant. Carol was nice, asked about my work as a graphic designer, even complimented a campaign I'd created for a major client. She seemed genuinely interested in rebuilding our relationship. She also started asking detailed questions about my diabetes management. How much insulin do you take? When do you take it? Where do you keep it? I thought she was just trying to understand my condition better, maybe feeling guilty about her previous attitude. I take long-acting insulin once a day in the morning and fast-acting insulin before meals, I explained. I keep my supplies in my purse and backup supplies in our bathroom medicine cabinet at home. And you never miss a dose? Never. It's too dangerous. She nodded thoughtfully. You're very disciplined. I admire that. Patrick was thrilled that his mom and I were finally getting along. See? I told you she'd come around, he said. But Simone wasn't convinced when I told her. Why the sudden interest in your medical details? That's weird. She was a nurse. Medical stuff interests her. Just keep your guard up. Around this time, I noticed something odd. I'd been experiencing more blood sugar fluctuations than usual. Some mornings, my blood sugar would spike higher than it should, even though I'd taken my long-acting insulin as prescribed. I mentioned it to Dr. Williams, and she adjusted my dosage slightly, but the inconsistency continued. I started feeling off, more tired, thirstier, going to the bathroom constantly. Classic symptoms of high blood sugar. I checked my insulin pens to make sure they weren't expired. Everything seemed fine. Then came the Sunday dinner that changed everything. Carol had invited us over for a special meal, her famous beef stroganoff with all the fixings. Tyler was there with his girlfriend Amber, and Patrick's dad George was in his usual spot watching football in the living room. It seemed like a normal family dinner. I checked my blood sugar before we ate. It was slightly elevated at 158, which wasn't great, but not dangerous. I calculated my mealtime insulin dose based on the carbs I'd be eating, and injected it from my fast-acting pen, the one I always kept in my purse. We sat down to eat, and Carol was unusually attentive. Make sure you eat everything, Kendra. You need your strength. The meal was delicious, and I enjoyed catching up with Tyler and Amber. About halfway through dinner, I started feeling strange. My vision got blurry. My head felt foggy. I was incredibly thirsty despite drinking 2 glasses of water. Patrick, I said quietly. Something's wrong. What is it? I don't feel right. I need to check my blood sugar. I pulled out my glucose meter and tested. The number that came up made my heart stop. Dangerously high. That can't be right, I said. I just took my insulin. Test again, Patrick said, worried now. Same result. 421. My breathing started getting rapid and shallow. I felt nauseous. My mouth was incredibly dry. These were signs of diabetic ketoacidosis, a life-threatening condition that happens when blood sugar gets too high. I need to go to the hospital, I managed to say. Something's really wrong. That's when everything went dark. The conversation from the beginning happened, but I didn't hear it. I was unconscious. Kendra! Kendra, wake up! Someone call 911! What happened? What's wrong with her? I don't know, she just collapsed. She's not breathing right. Check her blood sugar, she's diabetic. Where's her kit? I woke up 3 days later in the ICU at St. Joseph's Hospital. Patrick was asleep in a chair beside my bed, his hand holding mine. When he saw me open my eyes, he started crying. Thank God. Thank God you're okay. What happened? My throat was so dry I could barely speak. You went into a diabetic coma. Your blood sugar was over 590 when the paramedics arrived. You had severe ketoacidosis. Kendra, you almost died. The memories came flooding back. The dinner, the blood sugar reading, the feeling of something being terribly wrong. But I took my insulin. I know I did. Dr. Williams came in shortly after I woke up. She looked serious. Kendra, we need to talk about what happened. Your blood sugar was critically high, Dr. Williams said, but you had no insulin in your system at all. Not from your mealtime dose, and barely any from your long-acting dose that morning. That's impossible. I take my insulin every day. I believe you, but somehow you weren't getting insulin. Do you still have your insulin pens? Patrick had brought my purse to the hospital. Dr. Williams examined my insulin pens, and her expression changed. We need to test these. The hospital lab ran tests on my insulin. The results were shocking. My fast-acting insulin pen contained mostly water, with only trace amounts of insulin. My long-acting insulin pen, the one I'd been using every morning for the past 2 months, was similarly diluted. Maybe 10% insulin, 90% water. Someone tampered with your insulin, Dr. Williams said gravely. This was deliberate. If you'd been alone when you collapsed, you would have died. The police were called. Detectives came to my hospital room and asked questions. Where did I keep my insulin? Who had access to it? Had anyone shown unusual interest in my medical supplies? And that's when it hit me. Carol. My mother-in-law, I said. She's been asking detailed questions about my insulin for months, about where I keep it, when I take it, everything. Kendra, that's crazy, Patrick said. My mom wouldn't, but even as he said it, I could see doubt in his eyes. Tyler came to visit me in the hospital, and I told him what the police had discovered. His face went pale. Oh my God, Kendra, I need to tell you something. A few weeks ago, I came by Mom and Dad's house unexpectedly. Mom was in her bathroom with a bunch of syringes and vials. She got really defensive when I walked in, said she was organizing old nursing supplies. But now, what else did you see? There were insulin pens on the counter. At the time, I thought maybe she'd started taking insulin herself, but she's not diabetic. Why would she have insulin pens? The police got a warrant to search Carol's house. What they found was damning. In her bathroom cabinet, hidden behind towels, were multiple empty insulin pen cartridges, the same brand I used. They also found syringes, empty saline vials, and a notebook with detailed notes about insulin types, dosages, and timing. Most chilling was a page in her notebook that read, "Once the insulin is replaced gradually, she won't notice right away. By the time she realizes something's wrong, it will look like she mismanaged her own condition. No one will suspect tampering." Carol had been planning this for months. The Sunday dinners, the friendly conversations, the interest in my diabetes management, it was all part of her plan. She'd been gradually replacing my insulin with water over time, which explained the inconsistent blood sugar readings I'd been having for weeks. But how had she accessed my insulin? That's when I remembered. About 2 months ago, Carol had insisted on giving me a care package of homemade brownies. She'd come to our house when Patrick and I were both home, said she needed to use the bathroom. She must have gone into our medicine cabinet then and switched out my long-acting insulin pen. As for my fast-acting pen in my purse, I'd left my purse in Carol's living room during one of those Sunday dinners when I went to help her in the kitchen. She would have had plenty of time to swap it out then. The police confronted Carol at her home. George was there, shocked and confused. According to the police report, Carol initially denied everything. Then she claimed she was trying to help me, that she wanted to prove I didn't really need insulin, that my body could heal itself without medication. She was becoming too dependent on those chemicals, Carol told the police. I wanted to show her she could survive without them. I was monitoring her carefully. I would have intervened if things got too serious. Mrs. Foster, Your daughter-in-law went into a coma and nearly died, the detective said. That's because she ate too many carbs at dinner. If she'd followed my diet plan, she would have been fine. The delusion was breathtaking. Carol genuinely believed she'd been helping me by replacing life-saving medication with water. In her mind, she was rescuing me from pharmaceutical dependence. Tyler recorded a conversation with his mother where she admitted everything, thinking she was talking to her son in confidence. I know everyone's mad at me now, she told Tyler, but eventually, Kendra will thank me. She'll see that she doesn't need insulin. Her body just needs time to adjust. Mom, she almost died. But she didn't. See, she's stronger than everyone thinks. That recording became key evidence in the case against her. Carol was arrested and charged with attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, in this case the weapon being the absence of insulin, and tampering with medication. Because she'd used her nursing knowledge to commit the crime, the charges were even more severe. George filed for divorce immediately. I had no idea, he told Patrick, crying. I knew your mother had strong opinions, but I never thought she'd do something like this. I'm so sorry. Patrick was devastated. His mother had tried to kill his wife. There was no coming back from that. He cut off all contact with Carol and threw himself into supporting me through my recovery. The physical recovery from the coma took weeks. I had to be carefully monitored as my body stabilized, but the psychological impact was worse. I developed severe anxiety about my insulin. I'd check and recheck my pens constantly, terrified someone had tampered with them again. I had nightmares about collapsing, about dying alone. Simone stayed with me for 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital. I hate that I was right about her, she said, but I'm so glad you're alive. Amber, Tyler's girlfriend, came forward with her own story. Carol tried to get me alone several times at family dinners, she told the police. She kept asking if I thought Kendra seemed overly dependent on medication. She was testing to see if I'd support her crazy theory. The realization of how calculated Carol's actions had been made everything worse. This wasn't a moment of madness. It was a months-long campaign to kill me. The trial happened 4 months later. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: the tampered insulin pens, the notebook with Carol's plans, Tyler's recorded conversation, and medical expert testimony about how dangerous it is to deprive a type 1 diabetic of insulin. Carol's lawyer tried to argue that she hadn't intended to kill me, that she genuinely believed she was helping. The prosecutor destroyed that argument. The defendant is a former nurse with 30 years of experience. She absolutely knew that depriving a type 1 diabetic of insulin is life-threatening. She documented her plan in detail. This wasn't ignorance. This was attempted murder. Dr. Williams testified about the severity of my condition when I arrived at the hospital. Kendra Foster was in critical condition. Her blood sugar was 641 when she arrived. She had severe diabetic ketoacidosis. If the paramedics had arrived even 10 minutes later, she likely would have died or suffered permanent brain damage. I testified about Carol's history of dismissing my condition, her comments about natural cures, her sudden interest in my insulin routine. The jury listened with horror. The defense called a psychologist who testified that Carol had a delusional disorder. She genuinely believed alternative medicine could cure diabetes and that she was saving me from pharmaceutical harm. But the prosecutor pointed out that, delusion or not, Carol knew her actions were secret and wrong. She'd hidden the evidence, lied to her family, and carefully planned everything over months. She knew exactly what she was doing. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, I gave a victim impact statement. Carol Foster tried to kill me because she couldn't accept that I need medication to survive. She was willing to risk my life to prove her point. Because of her actions, I developed severe anxiety. I have nightmares. I'm terrified of dying every time I take my insulin, wondering if someone has tampered with it. She didn't just attack my body, she attacked my sense of safety in the world. The judge sentenced Carol to 15 years in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 10 years. She also permanently lost her nursing license and was ordered to pay for my medical expenses and therapy. Carol's downfall extended beyond the prison sentence. Her friends and former colleagues from Mercy General Hospital cut ties with her completely. News of the case spread through the community. The nursing board investigated and found she'd been promoting dangerous alternative medicine advice to several former patients, recommending they stop taking prescribed medications. Several complaints were filed against her retroactively. Her reputation as a caring nurse was completely destroyed. Articles were written in the Chicago Tribune about how medical professionals can become radicalized by alternative medicine communities. She became a cautionary tale. George, devastated by his wife's actions, moved to Arizona to live near his sister. He maintains a relationship with Patrick, but refuses to speak to Carol. "I don't know the woman I married," he told us. "That person would never have done this." Tyler struggled with guilt, feeling like he should have taken his suspicions more seriously. He goes to therapy now, working through the trauma of his mother being a would-be murderer. It's been a year since that terrible Sunday dinner. A year since my mother-in-law tried to murder me with calculated precision, using her medical knowledge not to heal but to harm. The recovery has been long and painful. Physically, I'm back to managing my diabetes effectively. Dr. Williams helped me establish new protocols. I now keep my insulin in a locked case that only Patrick and I have keys to. I test my insulin regularly using special strips that can detect tampering. I've become hyper-vigilant in ways that exhaust me, but keep me alive. The psychological recovery is ongoing. I see a therapist twice a week. We're working through the PTSD, the nightmares, the paranoia that creeps in every time I have to inject insulin. There are still nights when I wake up gasping, convinced I'm back at that dinner table, feeling my body shutting down while my mother-in-law watched with satisfaction. Patrick has been my rock through all of this. He carries his own guilt. Guilt that his mother did this, guilt that he didn't see it coming, guilt that he brought this person into my life. We do couples therapy together, working through the trauma that nearly destroyed us before we even had a chance to build our family. We've put our plans for a baby on hold. My doctors say I'm physically capable, but emotionally, I'm not ready. The thought of being pregnant and vulnerable, of needing even more careful medical management, terrifies me. Maybe someday, but not yet. Simone still comes over twice a week. She's appointed herself my insulin security guard, checking my supplies with me, making sure everything is sealed and safe. "Nobody's getting to you again," she says fiercely. "Not on my watch." Tyler sends me texts every few days, just checking in. He's carrying his own trauma, the knowledge that he saw warning signs and didn't act on them quickly enough. I've told him it's not his fault, that none of us could have imagined a mother would go this far. But guilt doesn't listen to logic. George sent me a long letter last month, apologizing again for not seeing what his wife was becoming. He included a check for my therapy expenses that I haven't cashed yet. Money doesn't fix this, but I appreciate the gesture. Carol writes letters from prison. Patrick tears them up without reading them. She's tried calling from jail. We've blocked the number. She genuinely believes she's the victim in this story, that she's been wrongly imprisoned for trying to help me. The delusion continues even behind bars. The diabetes community rallied around me. My story made national news, and suddenly I was hearing from other people with chronic conditions who'd faced similar dismissal from family members, partners, even medical professionals who should know better. I started a blog about medical advocacy and the right to have your condition taken seriously. It's become a small community of people who understand. Patrick proposed we move to a new city, make a fresh start away from the memories. We're considering Portland. Somewhere Carol doesn't know. Somewhere I can walk down the street without seeing the restaurant where we had that first dinner, the hospital where I almost died, the courthouse where justice was served, but peace remained elusive. If someone you loved endangered your life because they refused to accept your medical needs, would you ever be able to forgive them? Or would you make sure they paid for every consequence? I already know my answer.